Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of One on One. Joining me now, Louisville Volleyball head coach Dani Busboom Kelly. And Dani, first, I love the lounge or this team room that you guys have. I remember being here for the selection show. And can you tell me about this environment a little bit for people who have never seen it and are kind of getting a peek behind the curtain?
Well, this is our lounge. It's an incredible place.
Yeah.
What's amazing is it's only for volleyball, and our players have access to this all year round, any time of the day. We have an awesome couch, so most of the time you'll see them taking naps. We have some epic ping pong battles, and then we have a kitchen and a place for team meals. So again, amazing space that we utilize every day, and it really helps build our culture. Like when we can all be together in one area that's comfortable, there's a lot of like organic team connections that happen in here.
Ping pong tournaments, anything? Are you playing?
No,
at all?
I'm not a great ping pong player, but no, my assistant Dan claims he's the best. And
Is that right?
but I think there's some players that beat him occasionally.
I was about to say, it's got to get highly competitive
It
between
totally
the coaches
gets
and the
highly
players
competitive.
sometimes. But I always wonder, like, if you get too competitive in like your ping pong tournament or whatever, like you got to keep your focus elsewhere too, because you got a team full of competitors. They want to win all the time.
It's true.
I would imagine.
It's true, but sometimes I think that's good. We play a lot on game days, or they play, not
really?
even we, because I don't. But it's like maybe it gets their competitive juices flowing, before the game or practice even starts.
But sitting in here now and seeing what you all have, I want you to take me back to when you first started this job, and you're taking stock of the program you want to build and what you think you will need in the future. Now, I don't think anybody was forward thinking enough to see what college athletics is now and what it requires, but just sitting in this space and comparing to where you started, do you ever, take a step back in reflection and be like, wow, look at what we have here now?
Of course we take a step and look back, and very proud of what we've done, but also you don't really have time this day and age to take a step and look back, because it's like, how can we get better and better? And the ultimate goal is yet to be achieved. And I think the challenge in college athletics is not, can you be good 1 year? It's, can you sustain a program of greatness over multiple years? And that's what we're really thinking about, is how can we be good year to year and make sure that we're, a top program, top 10 program year in and year out.
Yeah.
But no, thinking back to 2017, I didn't necessarily believe we'd be in Final Fours. That was like on our vision board, but will we ever be able to accomplish that? And now it feels like, we should be there every year, or we should be we should be knocking on the door, and luckily we have been. So, yes, very proud of the accomplishments.
Yeah, but so when you're kind of setting out and first starting this job, obviously, as you said, you don't anticipate to just get right to the top. It's going to take some time. What did you see as immediate points where you said, wait, Louisville has this. We just got to capitalize on this a little bit, and we can kind of get this thing rolling?
The volleyball community was really important.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to have a consistent fan base? And because, college athletes want to play in front of a crowd.
Sure.
You spend all this time perfecting your sport, and you want to share it with people. So I think that was really important, and I knew Louisville had that. It's like, again, the consistency. If we were consistent, I knew fans would continue to show up. And then I just think the university and its commitment to women's athletics, and you're seeing that even more now in the space of NIL and revenue sharing. Is I don't have to be hesitant when I talk to recruits. I know that women's sports will be supported here, and that's not the case for every school.
And the rise of women's sports as a whole, I think, extends beyond women's volleyball. We see what's happening in the WNBA. We see what's happening in women's college basketball and
softball.
All of them. Yeah. It's amazing to see, especially as someone. I grew up going to ODU women's basketball games with my mom because she's an alum in a very historic program. But when you see the entire landscape now, and as someone who was a very successful college athlete in this sport, just what are your overall feelings when you're sitting back, not even watching maybe the volleyball tournament, but the Women's College World Series and the rise of the WNBA and women's college basketball?
It's so easy to jump on the bandwagon. I played a ton of softball growing up, but I never really watched it on TV. And this year I was actually into it, and my husband was into it. And it's just there's so many great stories and so many reasons to watch beyond just the product on the field that it's just easy to be drawn to the characters on the court, field, and it's really special. And there's no better time than now to be a female athlete. And it's exciting to tell young recruits that about the opportunities that they might have and that are potentially coming their way that we didn't even get to have. And I felt like when I was a player, we had everything we could possibly need. And now there's, more coming and just more opportunities, how sport can better them for their life.
For sure. And you kind of touched on this a little bit in how the department supports women's sports. But I think this city is so uniquely positioned in the space of the continued rise of women's sports because the only top-tier pro team in the entire state is Racing Louisville FC. The success of the women's basketball program, field hockey, volleyball, and then the prep scenes in all of those sports too. I feel like Louisville is a city where that can continue to really take off, and women's sports can really lead and define this city even more than it already does.
I agree, and especially when you start intermingling fan bases. And that's luckily we've been able to do that a little bit with women's basketball.
Sure.
And, there's a lot of universities where women's basketball and volleyball do not get along because they have to share a facility, and there's always issues with that.
It's a competition
and
a little bit.
We're so lucky that we have an amazing relationship with women's basketball. So they're leading the charge and setting the standard in the community. But then they're also helping us any way they can to match them, and that's really unique. And then hopefully we can help softball. It just is a trickle down effect.
Absolutely.
With all the sports. And I agree. Louisville people in general, they love success and they love seeing hard work pay off. And I think women are really fun to watch in that way.
You guys, you and Jeff, when that intermingling starts happening as head coaches, do you guys kind of touch base and say, hey, let's push this a bit. We like this. We're both great programs, and you both kind of came in and changed the history of these two programs too. Just what is that relationship like between you guys to build that synergy with the programs? It's
just really open. Jeff and I will talk about anything and everything, but when we made our run in 21, it was the first Final Four, and we were undefeated. He was getting me on all his talk shows and making sure he was tweeting, and I just thought that was pretty amazing. And then it's been really easy to continue that throughout the years and kind of build off each other.
Well, what did that tell you because not every coach, they don't have to do that
by any
absolutely
means.
Not. I'm sure you might get a directive from the athletic director hey, make sure you tweet about this or text about this or whatever, but that went a long way with you.
For sure. For sure, and just the respect that we have for the women's basketball program and what he's done. It's amazing to have a mentor in general that's done something that you are aspiring to do, but to have one that is, in the same department and right down the street that you see on a weekly basis just makes it makes the vision come to life in a more clear way.
Yeah. I almost laughed for a second when you were talking about Jeff will say anything, and I'm like, well, that's just Jeff. He doesn't have a filter on much of anything. But seeing what you two have been able to accomplish and again, kind of transforming those programs. Did you ever, whether it was him or somebody else, kind of lean on anybody to say, hey, this has a lot of potential, but I'm kind of still trying to figure out how to, get the most out of that or tap into that a little bit more?
I wouldn't say there's a lot of outside influence, and I'm really lucky to have amazing staff members that have been here for a long time and have had other great experiences. Dan Meskey was a head coach at a Division II school. He worked at Nebraska, with myself, so one of the premier programs in the country. And then Todd Chamberlain worked at Kansas and saw them go from not making the tournament to making a Final Four. So he saw a program transform exactly, what we're trying to do here at Louisville. So it was a lot of collaboration within our staff that I think really was helpful. And then each of us kind of have maybe a mentor or two that we like to bounce ideas off, and then we can combine those ideas as a staff and get input in various ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you pull from as good of an experience as anybody when you come from Nebraska. And when you look back on your playing days there and what they have been able to do with that program, in my opinion, one of the preeminent women's volleyball programs in the country, what did you take from there that you carry with you as a coach now?
Well, so many things. As a player, I had a unique career because I switched positions, and I think just my experience of switching positions and learning how to view the game in two completely different ways really helped my coaching career. But even working at Nebraska, and understanding what it takes to be the best year in and year out, I think that's so important to have been there before, even if it wasn't a head coach, because you could see the inner workings of what it takes. And knowing that it's not easy, and also being grateful. Like sometimes I think even fans are like, oh, now you're there, let's do it every year. Like it is so difficult. So many things have to go your way to make a Final Four. And there's so many great programs, and there's more parity than ever in volleyball. So being very grateful for, the success is also really important. And like having high expectations, but be able to be realistic, I think is something that Nebraska has done really well that I've taken into this program.
Can you walk me back to your upbringing in Nebraska? I think I've read some stories where you had, 2 stoplights in town? So maybe 2 stoplights?
No
stoplights at all?
No.
My goodness, that's funny.
So I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, and I graduated with 5 boys and 15 girls in my class. So super tiny, no stoplights. We had 2 stop signs in the town.
Okay. Wow.
So very small, but I grew up on a farm, so my dad's still a farmer today.
Okay.
But really shaped the foundation of who I am with work ethic and being very, flexible. And I think it's funny, as a farmer, I always joke, it's like you're literally in Vegas your whole life. Like you're betting on rain or no rain or wind, and
I've never thought about
the
that
prices do we sell corn now or do we wait?
Yeah.
So but I was lucky. My dad, he loves sports, and he never has let farming dictate his mood. He's always been a very positive person, and I think that's something that I got to see growing up. Is I had friends whose dads or families were in a bad mood because the price of corn dropped, or there was a hailstorm, and my dad was very consistent with his demeanor. I think that is something that is important to me as a coach, is just being consistent and having that consistent demeanor so my players know what they're going to get.
Well, when you grow up in a town of that size and that small of a school, I imagine, I always love hearing people's reactions to coming to Louisville for the first time, because it's got that big city feel to it, but it's also not that big. It's like a big town in a way, as some people would describe it. But if you grew up with a place that's got 2 stop signs, you probably come to places like Louisville or Lincoln, and you're like, whoa, this is a little different.
Well, luckily I didn't grow up too far from Lincoln. I was in Lincoln a lot with sports and to get groceries or, the random day-to-day needs. But coming to Louisville, I've always felt like it was a perfect fit for me, because it has the Midwestern work ethic and the Southern hospitalities combined. And I feel like it's the attitude of play hard, work hard. And I think that's how I grew up. And it's just, we're going to just go hard with everything that we do. And give it our all. And I don't know, I just love Louisville, that there's a lot to do. There's things going on, but it's not so big that you get lost or feel like you're in this rat race. It's a very welcoming city.
One more farm question for me. One, do you still help out at all when you go back? Not at all. Okay.
I mean, I pretend maybe. I'll drive the 4-wheeler around the farm.
I mean, it's better than me. I'm not going to do well with that. But did you have what was your favorite task to help out with, and what was your least favorite task to help out with?
I mean, I don't think there was any favorites.
Okay. All right.
So my mom always worked in Lincoln or Beatrice or surrounding towns. So I would say my favorite would be learning, the ins and outs of cooking. She's an amazing cook.
Okay.
Even though I might not have helped out a ton, but I appreciate it now.
Yeah?
When I did.
Do you even have time to cook like that much now with your schedule? Or
No,
Oh, I was
my
about to
husband
say.
likes to cook, so
Okay,
that's
all right, that works.
good for me
Yeah, yeah.
to marry somebody that likes to cook.
Yeah.
But my least favorite, we had hogs when I was young, really young,
Okay.
and when we had to castrate the pigs, I always had to help my
Oh,
dad,
my
and I had to
goodness.
bring them to the piglets to my dad. So,
I was not prepared for that. I'm not gonna lie to you.
so that was definitely my least favorite.
We might have to edit that out. That's a little graphic for this. Because
you want me to
I have
change it?
no. You're good. I have no comparable experience to this, so I was just hearing that is hilarious. And last thing on the Nebraska front as a whole, when it's home, it's always going to represent something different to you. And I feel like there's kind of a comparison I can make with Jeff and Louisville, Jeff Brom in Louisville. Like even when he was at Purdue or other jobs, it was always in the back of people's heads. It's like, maybe it goes back to Louisville. I mean, you have a wonderful program here, and Nebraska obviously is maintaining its status as a power. How do you look at that in the future? Do you try to just live in the moment and look at what you're building here, or do you ever have an inkling that you'd want to go back home?
For sure, I want to be where my feet are, and
Yeah.
Louisville's been amazing to me, and been amazing to the sport of volleyball.
Yeah.
And when you build something, that you feel like is yours, there's a lot of pride in that.
Sure.
Whether it's home or it's far away, I think the most important thing is like, do your values align with where you're at?
Yeah.
And location doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And so I think Louisville encompasses that for me and my family, and we're obviously super excited to be here. And this year is really epic.
Well, it's huge,
and
yeah.
just with the Final Four being here, and the possibility to make it to the Final Four in Louisville is
Yeah.
like, I've never been more excited about an opportunity in my life. And I've played in 2 Final Fours in Omaha when I was at Nebraska. And I
Yeah.
think this is a whole nother level. So
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit. I imagine that when you're doing preseason workouts or whatever, you don't have to look for a ton of motivation. I would
Yeah.
think it's like, hey, we can play the
Definitely
Final
not.
Four. Well, number one, winning a national championship. You've
Yep.
come close, and that's always great motivation. But close second, playing the Final Four at home, I would think is an easy selling point to your
Oh
players.
yeah, it's definitely something we're going to talk about a lot, because it's going to be the elephant in the room in everything we do.
Sure, yeah.
It's like, if we lose a match, does this affect our chance to get to the Final Four? It's going to be something we're constantly thinking about.
Yeah.
But I think that's exciting, and it's realistic, and
Yeah.
I think our players understand that. At one point, when it got announced that it was going to be in Louisville, at that point it was like, I don't know if we'll have a chance to make it. We'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
'cause they announced it so far in advance.
What year was that when you guys
I
got it?
feel like they announced it, I guess it's 24, probably in like 2019.
Okay.
I mean, it was definitely before we had made a Final Four.
Yeah, so you guys were on the rise, but you weren't quite.
Yeah,
where
we
you're
were,
at now.
top 25.
Sure,
But
right.
making the Final Four was still like, holy cow, I don't know if we'll ever do that. And so being able to have a team that you believe can make it is pretty incredible. And I think our players understand that. It hasn't been a given or something that's like, well, we'll make it. And
Yeah.
so it's like, no, we're excited that we actually have a team we believe can make it.
For sure. And in addition to that, you guys are playing 6 home matches at the Yum, which
Yeah.
I believe you've never played that many since you've been the coach at
I
the
don't
Yum
think
Center.
so. Last year we played 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So I imagine those discussions between you, the athletic department, the Yum Center, they see the attendance you guys have been able to bring in for those games. Just how much does it excite you to have those bigger crowds for even 2 more matches than you had last year?
Yeah, I think it's huge for the city. I think it's huge for the sport of volleyball, and we have a duty as I think any Power 4 program or any program that's on the rise has a duty to grow the game, and we want to do everything we can, and part of that is getting more eyes on our sport.
Sure.
So getting
Yeah.
more people in the Yum Center is really important, and these games are going to be crazy. When you look at our opponents, I think all of them, that everybody we play in the Yum Center was in the Sweet 16 last year. So these are like, powerhouse programs. Some programs are on the rise.
Yeah.
Some have been there. So these not only will be great for Louisville fans, but just volleyball fans in general, and just being able to showcase our sport at a high level, will help attract more fans and new people.
When does the full-time move to the Center happen?
Well, hopefully, I don't know if it ever will be full-time. I think we have the best of both worlds, and it's a unique position to be in because we technically have 2 arenas.
Yep.
And it's hard to give up everything we have at LNN because of the convenience of it. It feels like home.
Sure.
There's a line out the door like before every game. There's
Yeah.
some really unique and fun features of LNN that you don't want to give up completely. But as we continue to grow, I do think more games will be down at the Center. But I don't know if I ever want to move down there full time.
I've seen you say before in stories that you guys have had talks about trying to maybe get a new arena that's a little bigger than what LNN is, but not quite the size of the Center. Just wondering, is there any update on that, or any of those discussions, or what you could share?
There's not any update. I think that's, always on administration's mind, like how do we better our facilities and what does each sport need to continue to be successful. But with the landscape of college athletics, facilities might not be the most important thing moving forward. And that's why we are so lucky here that we have 2 options and we can really play off those 2 options. But, hopefully the future is still, an arena. Is in the plans. It's just, what else could that arena be used for? I don't think they're ever going to build one only for volleyball, whether it's, the university uses it for events.
Like a multi-purpose type thing, right?
Somewhat, the community can use it, for events, but we would be the main tenants. That's the goal. It's just figuring out what else we can use it for.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I think there's about a $20 to $22 million question that everybody is still figuring out. And I'd be remiss to not at least ask you about that since that news came down. And as a coach of a program that has a prominent place in this city, is continuing to rise in the sport, just how do you see these changes in the landscape affecting you and your program?
Man, it's going to change a lot. But I think that's it's an unknown. How will this affect us? I don't know. I do feel confident that the University of Louisville will fully fund whatever that looks like.
Sure.
Will fully fund volleyball. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, we all hope that the big sports can continue to win and that all trickles down and makes every sport's life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I don't think any of us do, to be honest with you.
And I do think it feels good to say, I don't think a lot of schools can say they truly believe that their volleyball will be fully funded, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But I believe that we will here at Louisville. So that's the only thing I can really say.
Sure. I mean, it's the only thing you have control over, or have any of us have control over. But it's interesting to me because you saw the sport in a completely different place as a player. And the phrasing of the big sports, you guys are one of the big sports.
Well, I agree.
Here at Louisville.
Yes.
But just kind of that, if you were Dani Busboom Kelly, the player, however many years back that was, and you were told, hey, one day you're going to be the head coach and volleyball is going to be one of the, for lack of a better phrase, revenue generators for the athletic department. I mean, would you have seen that back then when you were playing at all?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
I would have thought, no, I think we can get butts in the seat, in the stands, but I don't think we can make money beyond our expenses. And to think that sports are doing that, women's sports are doing that, volleyball programs are doing that is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not filling a whole football stadium like they are in Nebraska, you guys are doing well. The sport as a whole, as we get to wrap up here in a minute, where do you see the next step for women's college volleyball, or even pro leagues are starting to develop as well? But when you look at that 30,000 foot view of the sport, what do you see as the next steps for it?
Man, when I think about the next steps, I think TV is huge. We're going to have a lot of exciting games on TV, more than we ever have. Getting on TV is important. Volleyball right now has been on maybe ESPNU and had a couple games on the main network.
Right.
What's that look like moving forward? Because more TV time is going to generate more revenue and more interest. So I think the next step is getting on the main networks and getting on the ABCs and NBCs, you know, a few times a year, and then hopefully like a consistent volleyball days, or you know, we're going to showcase volleyball on this evening, just nationally.
Yeah, the last thing for me is, obviously you have high expectations for your program every year, but you guys bring a lot of talent back. You obviously have a very clear goal in mind. It's so early, but if you can give fans a taste or a summary of what to expect from this group, what you like about them, what you think you could work on, what would those be?
You know, I like a lot about this group. We have, you know, everybody but one starter is back. We added some freshmen that are arguably the most talented freshmen we've ever had, that are going to help us fill some holes.
Yeah.
We have the deepest team probably we ever had, so the competition for positions is going to be really, really tough, and it's going to be battles every day. I think just working on, you know, the leadership, you know, it's remiss to say like we didn't lose 4 great leaders, because even though they might not have had a ton of playing time, they were great leaders on and off the court. And so the leadership, I think, still needs to develop, and I'm lucky that they are working on that and taking control of that this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final thing for me, I like to try and end with an anecdote sometimes, and I think I read it, and I want to see if it's still accurate. You're in Denny Crum's old office?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So, one, when did you realize that? Did somebody tell you, or were you just one day looking around and be like, oh wow, wait a second, this is Coach Crum's old office? Like,
well, actually, it was Coach Crum's, then Rick Pitino's, then Jeff Walz.
Yep.
So I've had, you know, quite the group of people at the desk. So I've heard some stories about those offices, but it's pretty cool to think about the amazing coaches that have sat at that seat.
Anybody leave something in a drawer that you found and you had to say, hey,
no,
Denny, Jeff, Rick, hey,
there
man,
was a rug that I was told was like Rick Pitino's favorite rug. It's no longer there. But
why
the rug
on earth would Rick Pitino have a favorite rug?
I don't know. So the rug, I think I'm going to gift it to Pat Kelsey. It's still rolled up in a closet, so I might just send it on over there and see if he has a use for it.
You're going to have to take a picture of that or something and share it. Be like, here's my gift to PK. It's a rug. You'll get it one day. But, Dani, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
As always, thank you so much. Dani Busboom Kelly, Louisville Volleyball. Thank you guys for watching another episode of One on One. See you later.
If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel below and hit the like button if you like this video. As always, thanks for watching WDRB News.